Episode 4, Marks on a Wall. Rowen shielded the candle with his hand as he stepped back into the daughter's bedroom. The flame warmed his palm, but did nothing to relieve his anxious shivering. Chewing his lip, he eyed the now exposed hatch as he paced around the edge of the room, careful not to trip over the disheveled cowhide rug. From its position, it appeared as though someone had tried to emerge through the previously covered hatch, only to retreat within when he'd called out from the other room. That would explain the glow, Rowen mused. His gaze drifted to the overturned chair. Doesn't explain that, though. The chair hadn't been knocked over. It had been moved. Rowen lifted the axe hanging from his belt and dropped it back, making sure it was clear in case he needed to draw it. A tremor shook his hand. He flexed his fingers, balling them in a fist. Come on, Rowen. He knelt beside the closed hatch. This is what you've been looking for. Don't get weak now. The iron ring felt cold against his fingers. With a slow breath, he lifted. The hinges groaned. A stale rush of air escaped the darkness below. Rowen recoiled immediately. The smell was wrong. Not rot, not exactly. Something older. Musty earth, mold, damp wood. And beneath it all, that metallic twang. He recognized it now. Blood. The staircase descended into darkness. Rowen stretched the candle out over the opening. The light revealed little beyond a handful of crude wooden steps, dissolving into black. He swallowed back the lump in his throat, then began the descent. Aging wood complained with each tentative step into the gullet of the house. At the third, he paused. A swatch of color fluttered from a rusted nail protruding from the wall. Rowen leaned closer. Yellow fabric. Carefully, he plucked it free. The torn hem of a dress, white lace trimming the edge. A small stain darkened one corner. Red. Was it the mother's? His stomach tightened. Or the daughter's? He left the cloth on the steps. Better not to dwell on that. Further down, the smell grew stronger. The candlelight danced with every step, his attention no longer on protecting the fragile flame with a hand. As the floor of the basement finally came into view, something just beyond the final step glistened weakly in the light. Black, glossy, wet. Rowen's pulse quickened. More blood. Not a splash, not a smear. A pool. The kind left behind when a wound emptied itself completely. Far too much for a single person to survive. In the black, a faint sound echoed off the hard stone walls. Stone scraping stone. Rowen jerked his head toward the noise, eyes straining, looking for movement, color, anything. The moments ticked by in time with his pounding heart. The darkness stared back at him, silent, daring him to approach. Is that you? There was no response, no sound but for the blood thrumming through his ears. After what felt like an eternity, he convinced himself to traverse the remaining steps. The meager candlelight was no match for the sprawling understory. Shelves lined the walls and split the space into labyrinthine sections, most empty, a few still holding the forgotten relics of an ordinary life. Dust-covered jars, a cracked lantern, bundles of mold-blackened rope, rusting tools hanging from pegs driven into ancient timber supports. The room felt abandoned. Not recently, years ago, as though life itself had withdrawn from the space. He followed the trail of blood until it butted up against the far wall and stopped, There, the candlelight revealed something else. Marks. Hundreds of them. Rowen approached cautiously, unable to stop himself from reaching out to run a curious hand across the faintly raised markings. Charcoal drawings. The earliest sketches were crude and old enough that his curious fingers didn't smear the lines. Stick figures, crooked houses, dogs, trees, the sorts of things a young child might draw. He walked along the wall, his boots crunching in the gravel. The next drawings were different. The houses remained, sharper now, more practiced. But here, dark rectangles began appearing beneath them, always below. Rowen's brow furrowed. At first they seemed insignificant. Then they appeared more often, larger, darker. Soon the people disappeared from the pictures entirely. Only the dark shapes remained. Rowen moved slowly along the wall. He'd forgotten where he was, why he was there. The drawings became increasingly detailed, increasingly desperate. Every surface seemed covered. Openings, black gaps, passages leading into nothing. Doorways. The charcoal strokes grew heavier, angrier, obsessive, as though the artist had been trying to capture something they couldn't quite remember, or something they couldn't forget. A cold knot formed in Rowen's stomach as the wall angled sharply to his right. The final drawings dominated an entire section. Gone were the childish sketches. Gone were the crude shapes. These were careful, meticulous, the work of someone consumed. Again and again the same image appeared. Not a door. An opening. A ragged wound torn through stone. Darkness beyond. Each version was larger than the last, each more detailed, more familiar, more real. Rowen's breathing quickened. The candle trembled in his hand. The final drawing stretched nearly from floor to ceiling. Every crack, every stone, every shadow, rendered with painstaking accuracy. Rowen stared. His pulse thundered in his ears. Wait, no. Slowly, he stepped forward. The candlelight crawled across the image, across the jagged edges, across the darkness beyond, across the loose stones scattered at its base. His free hand rose, fingers brushing cold stone. Not charcoal. Stone. Real stone. Rowen's eyes widened. This wasn't a drawing. Something had broken through the wall. The opening stood before him, partially collapsed, filled with loose dirt, shattered rock, and darkness. For a long moment he simply stared. Then his gaze drifted back to the walls, to the hundreds of charcoal sketches, to the doors, to the openings, to the endless attempts to capture the same impossible image. His blood ran cold. Someone hadn't imagined this. Someone hadn't discovered it. Someone had known it was coming.